Hello everyone, my name is Smogan and welcome to the first Spectate Mode Scrollscast. In these videos I will be watching a game on Scrolls in Spectate Mode and I will simply commentate on the play. These videos will be periodically released on the Badger Guild YouTube channel, so you can check out there for more videos that are similar. Okay, and without further ado, we have Nickdean16 versus Flayer. Both players playing mono decay decks, both players very highly ranked right now. I believe both are above 1800 as of the time of this recording. So here we are in round one. Nickdean just sacrifices for one resource and passes. Flayer sacrifices for one resource and doesn't have a play in his hand, so he'll pass as well. Nickdean's turn doesn't have a 2-drop other than Languid, which of course is not usable right now, so he'll sacrifice up and pass the turn. Flayer up, he brings a Loyal Darkling off the top of the deck, so he'll have the first creature down, sacrifices the expensive Necrogeddon to get the Loyal Darkling out there. Does play it up in the very front instead of the middle, which is surprising. Typically you want to play in this middle slot because it is just infinitely more flexible than playing up here. Now Nickdean has the choice between the Blightbearer and the Rot Eater, chooses the Blightbearer, a little bit stronger unit at this point in the game. Rot Eater is arguably better in some situations when you can feed a lot of units to it, but as of right now, the Blightbearer is a bit stronger and more resilient. And the turn passes to Flayer. Looks like I might have a spectate bug where we don't get to see Flayer's cards this turn, so we'll just have to see what he plays. He'll of course almost certainly sacrifice up to a 3rd decay, and I believe he had a 3-drop in his hand. Of course he would play it behind his Loyal Darkling. While we have some downtime while we wait for the spectate mode to fix itself. The reason why I say that this is just a worse play than playing back here is when you drop the Loyal Darkling up front, you can only move to one of these 3 spots. Whereas if you play it on an otherwise empty board, all else being equal, play it right here, you can still move to any of those spots, but you also have the flexibility of moving back here. Now with a creature like Darkling, it's extremely rare that you would need to move it back, but a situation could arise that you would want to. So why would you take away that flexibility when there is absolutely no upside to playing the unit right in front, at least at this stage in the game? Of course, later in the game when you have more units on the board, it makes sense to play units up here, but for your first play, almost always, when it's the first creature on the board, drop it right here in the middle. I'm going to reset the spectate mode and see if I can't get the game to catch up to where it was. We might have missed a few rounds, unfortunately. Yep, we missed a few rounds. What we saw is we saw a Rot Eater come down, Ripper, Oblivion Seeker, and a Harvester, and the turn is over to Nickdean, who has nothing in his hand. I believe it's his turn. Unfortunately, spectate mode may have broke again. At least Flayer is doing something, so we'll catch up. Moves away from the Blightbearer to avoid killing it and getting poisoned again. Does deal some idle damage. Nickdean's turn, top deck's a Languid. So he could go ahead and cast that and then sacrifice the scroll he gets, but instead chooses to sacrifice it for 2 more right away, which I agree with, because for exactly this reason you could pull one of your powerful 4, 5, or 6 cost units off the top and then want to play it as soon as possible. So he'll play the Cursemonger, not behind the Blightbearer where it's too easy to poison and kill, in positions to threaten the Rot Eater. Alright, so now we get a peek at Flayer's hand. 2 Daemon Curses, a Harvester, and an Ilmire Tribesman. He would like to get a unit to die next to this Rot Eater so it lives, but that might be too difficult to pull off. He could play a Harvester Tribesman. Tribesman up top, Harvester maybe down low. It's a little bit risky because it's not defended, but he does have 1 turn to draw a creature to defend it before these units attack. Nickdean sees a Blightbearer and Loyal Darkling off the top. He can play both. Oblivion Seeker is activated and ready to attack. He could move up here and deal 2 damage unharassed to this Tribesman, and you'd probably rather do that than just deal 2 damage to an idol. Cursemonger played in the middle instead of the Blightbearer Darkling combo, and does decide to just deal damage to the center idol. Flayer shows a Reaping Mask off the top. This isn't standard to have that scroll, but he does have apparently at least 2 in the deck. Reaping Mask would be very powerful if played on a just about to attack Harvester. Of course, on a relentless creature, that's going to draw quite a few scrolls on a big attack. Unfortunately, doesn't have a unit he can play down to protect his Harvester, so he has to choose between Daemon Curse or just playing the Infectious Blight, and he does Infectious Blight, so he's just unfortunately going to lose this Harvester. Nickdean pulls a Witch Doctor off the top. He'd like to get that in play, I would imagine, probably sacrificing the Darkling to get up to 6 decay. saving the Blightbearer for future turns. Does sacrifice the Darkling. And still poison, yeah, still poison on this Rod Eater. Moves his units up to contest the second lane. Thinking about his Witch Doctor placement. Could place it down here in row 4, so it's protected at least by this Ripper for a turn. But then he loses his ability to trigger these off these units. But yeah, he does play it in the middle, unprotected, but of course Decay is a rather predictable fashion. No haste, no cooldown reduction, or at least very limited cooldown reduction. It'll be difficult for Flayer to make a surprise play to knock out this Witch Doctor. Does have 2 Witch Doctors of his own that he will be trying to get into play. Sacrifices the Reaping Mask to bring out that Witch Doctor in a position where he can spawn a Husk off of the Tribesman Death should it come to that. Sacrifices the Blightbearer, Cursemonger, and Darkling off the top. He could drop both or drop the Oblivion Seeker. Nice, of course, Oblivion Seeker is very nice in front of this Witch Doctor. Chooses to curse the Tribesman. Moves Witch Doctor in front. Maybe. Might just deal idle damage and play the other Oblivion Seeker in front to tank the 2 damage from the Tribesman. He probably doesn't want this Tribesman to die because then that just grows this Rod Eater again, and he absolutely does not want it to attack, and then it would trigger the Harvester. But no, he does move down. So what we're going to see here is the death of this Tribesman is going to feed all 3 of these powerful units. So I'm not sure that that was the right play. Positions his units to get away from these strong attackers. But as I see it, it looks like, unless we see something else, or there's something I'm missing, these units will move up and just wipe out this powerful lane of units. Loyal Darkling comes down, and here's the death of that Tribesman. Triggers all 3 units. Okay, so he's got 13 damage here. Sacrifices Oblivion Seeker and Languid off the top. Damning Curse on the Witch Doctor. I don't think he needed to do that. If my math is right, he could have gotten through. Oh, well, the Infectious Blight, maybe, I guess I didn't realize that. So he's deciding not to kill this Cursemonger because he wants the Blight to stay. And so Languid down on the Cursemonger, who will be just as happy just cursing things over and over again. Harvester will crash through the middle. Maybe this Rod Eater will finally die. Harvester of Nickdean's own off the top. See what he decides to sacrifice here. Probably the Ripper, it's the least effectual. Another Harvester. So, a lot of powerful plays he's choosing from. Harvester Brainlice, Harvester Harvester, Damning Curse would be the only scroll he could play this turn, but could knock out either of these powerful units. I wouldn't mind seeing a Cursemonger cursing either of these guys, and then following up with the Brainlice on the Harvester would kill it in 1 turn, the Witch Doctor in 2, and then a Harvester of his own back behind the Cursemonger in defensive positioning. 40 seconds to decide. Chooses the Damning Curse, takes out the Witch Doctor. Are we still going to see a curse on the Harvester, or is he going to kill this Husk? Throughout this, the Rod Eater continues to grow. Just continues to grow. He could curse the Rod Eater, and that would kill it, but chooses to kill the Husk instead. I probably would have killed the Rod Eater myself. Okay, Flayer. Bloodline Taint, which would knock out the Infectious Blighted Cursemonger. I think that's the only poison effect on the board right now. Has some strong units he can play. Brainlice, that will also take out that Cursemonger. That's good. And then Rod Eater down front, so it can tank the damage for the ever-growing 7 power Rod Eater. Infectious Blight, where did that hop to? That hop to the Cursemonger that has Languid in back. Another Damning Curse. Let's see, with Cursemonger, Brain Lice is still an instant kill for any of these units. Chooses the Harvester, and there's the Brain Lice. Choosing now between Harvester and Loyal Darkling out of his hand. Chooses the Harvester wisely in front of the Cursemonger up here in row 2, away from the attacking now 8 power Rot Eater that just continues to grow. Now 9 power, bigger and bigger and bigger. Could have killed it a few times earlier in the game, but if you leave a Rot Eater unchecked, even with poison, is that poison effect actually on there? I don't think it is. The animation's playing, but I don't think that poison's actually there. Of course, on the test server, poison lasts forever, but this is live server, so the poison shouldn't. I think that's just a visual bug that I've been queuing off of. Anyway, Flayer has another Infectious Blight off the top. Can't afford to do Blight and Taint at the same time. I guess he couldn't have. And then it does Infectious Blight and uses the Rot Eater to take out the middle idol. Cursemonger drops. Infectious Blight jumps to the Husk. Nickdean sacrifices for resources. Can play 2 units this turn. Any combination. Quite a few combinations of 2 units. Seeker Tribesman, Hunter Tribesman, Hunter Harvester. One Harvester down. Moves this Harvester up to the middle. Choosing now between Hunter and Tribesman. Hunter is just the better play. So if that Hunter can get in contact with the Rot Eater, that'll take it out, but sacrificing the Soul Steal. 2 poison effects and a Cursemonger and a Witch Doctor in hand. And no humans out there to really be tanks for the Witch Doctor, so he may hold off on it. Blightbearer goes down on the cursed Cursemonger, so he will die. Harvester moving away from the center where he's a little bit safer. Now choosing between Infectious Blight and Cursemonger. I wouldn't mind getting just another unit on the board. Infectious Blight is nice, but this Husk is already cursed, and these 3 units will take too long to tick down to death. But no, he does decide to Infectious Blight. That's a fine play too. But this Harvester is now triggered off all the poison death, so he can move in here and take out, finally, this large Rot Eater. But he'll have to be careful, because whatever he does, this Harvester will be, if he does move down, the Harvester will be on 1 countdown, ready to move up and wipe out this row if Flayer has any tricks at all. Ripper, Tribesman, and Oblivion Seeker are the creature options. See the Tribesman and probably the Oblivion Seeker come out. Brain Lice would be fine too, I suppose. Moves down. Double Infectious Blight on this Harvester, so he's probably okay with it dying should Flayer be able to trigger this Harvester. None of his targets are soul stealable, so it would take a Damning Curse probably to trigger that next countdown. Still thinking about his second play of the turn to follow up the Tribesman. Does decide on the Oblivion Seeker, puts it in a position where it can die to a Harvester attack with the Relentless, but he would draw those scrolls off of it. And then this Harvester would be ready to go, so there's the Damning Curse. That's just what he wanted. Languid on the Hunter. Perhaps a Damning Curse on this Harvester to near wipe the board. Or maybe he decides not to do that and wants to keep these Infectious Blights going, but that's risky. Very, very risky. Doesn't have to trigger this Harvester. Could just drop a Cursemonger up here somewhere. Lots of things to keep in mind. Does he want those Blights to stay? Is it worth letting his opponent have extra units for those Blights to stay, or letting his opponent get a Harvester attack? Does settle for the Cursemonger. Plays it in the back. Nickdean is not threatening to deal any damage this turn. 2 Life Stealers off the top, as well as a couple of Watchers that he's drawn in the last few turns. Soul Steal is dead right now. Brain Lice isn't particularly useful. Watcher comes down. Then a Life Stealer, perhaps. Soul steals his own. That was a good play. I didn't see that play. Soul steals his own Harvester off of the Watcher, which gets rid of both Infectious Blights that Flayer had in play. That was a nice little play. So Infectious Blight still got really good value, killing units and then forcing his opponent to use his own removal. But Nickdean played the best counter he could for that, and then plays out a second Watcher. So should he drop top deck and Necrogeddon, he'll be in a position to deal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 triggers off the Watcher for 14 random idle damage. But Flayer's Harvester is ready to attack. Lots of choices on what he kills. Sacrifices for scrolls, another Witch Doctor. More attacking units on the field would be ideal. This Harvester, I would imagine, would come through and wipe out the middle. Soul Steal triggers a Watcher, hits the top idol, moves him to the middle. And then a Ripper comes down, then a Loyal Darkling, I would guess. Plays it up to defend the Cursemonger, and then lets the Harvester go ahead and attack this lane, taking out the unit and the Watcher. So, oh, and there's those Necrogeddons drawn off of the Oblivion Seeker. So Flayer was right to be worried about that and to not let his opponent have multiple Watchers on the field, choosing instead to let him have a Harvester. And there's the third Necrogeddon, so that double Watcher play was at the right time. Couldn't keep them both out, but at the right time for 3 Necrogeddons. I wonder if he was counting his cards and knew he hadn't drawn a Necrogeddon yet and knew that they were coming very quickly. But anyway, for this turn, the resource cost math doesn't add up super well. He can really only make one play, or one of any of his plays. Rot Eater Brain Lice, I suppose, could be a double play. The Brain Lice would be just as good next turn, but could Brain Lice is Ripper. Brain Lice is the Meyer Shambler. That means his Harvester's on 1 countdown, ready to attack a little bit sooner. And that's what he decides to do. Dead Shambler, Rot Eater off the top. Sacrificed 2 poison spells, Blight and a Blight Bearer. Let's see, he has an active Cursemonger with an Infectious Blight, so he could one-shot this Rot Eater. Plays the Blight Bearer out to defend his Harvester. Here comes the curse on this Harvester up here. See the Blight go down on that Harvester, so it won't kill him this turn, but he'll be marked for death for next turn. Let's see. In a position where he could Necrogeddon, I'm not seeing it being tremendously beneficial, just too many 4 health units instead of 3 health units. Another Witch Doctor and a Soul Steal from his deck. Let's see, what can he play here? He's got 8 scrolls. It's only 7 resources, so he could do a Blight Bearer with a Soul Steal. He could Soul Steal, which triggers this Harvester and knock out the Cursemonger. That's not a bad play. Maybe he Soul Steals this Dark. Well, then that takes out this Idol, and he doesn't want that. But I suppose with that Darkling there, it's as good as dead anyway. Soul Steals the Ripper down here, triggering this Harvester. So the Tribesman could have moved down to kill the Ripper, but he wants to leave it here to guard the 5 health idol. Does move up to knock out the Cursemonger. Still 4 resources, Blight Bearer or Soul Steal. Probably the Blight Bearer will come down. Could Soul Steal his own Harvester again, but not right now with the attack coming. Blight Bearer down below. The attacks come in. And Flayer, let's see what he chooses to sacrifice. He'd love to get these Witch Doctors out, but He doesn't have a ton of resources to make multiple plays. Just has to choose one of his units. Does go ahead and sacrifice the Darkling, knocking out the Idol. Now he can Damning Curse one of these units, which will trigger this Harvester. And nope, it's not quite game. It would knock this Idol down to 1 health. Not quite game. Damning Curse is down there. Well, and then he moves the Harvester down, so that'll deal 7 damage to this Idol instead of killing these 2 units. So that's the choice he made, idle damage versus killing these units. Rod Eater comes alive. Nickdean is really on the ropes with an idol on 5 health and 3 health, so he has to be super careful. Flayer pulls a Necrogeddon at the right time, he can just end the game. And at the same time, while he wants to defend these idols by stacking multiple units, the Blightbearer makes that difficult because he can pop on Flayer's next turn to poison an entire row. Nickdean sacrifices up to 8 resources, moves his units up away from these idols so that he can Soul Steal, gets a fortuitous placement on the Mire Shambler, a nice defensive placement. So he moved his units away to avoid the poison, but at the same time risks just losing the game if Flayer can somehow get this Harvester to take down, which would be admittedly difficult. Might have been a good gamble. But still, on 7 cost, if he just has Ripper Necrogeddon, that's game. So he really needs to defend this idol, and he does. He defends that lane. He still loses to the Harvester countdown, but he's probably correct in thinking that that's really unlikely. Flayer pulls a Watcher. He's way behind on board, but he can, with the right draws, he can sneak out a win with direct damage. There's 1 Loyal Darkling. Needs 1 more to win it. I haven't been counting Loyal Darklings this game, especially with the lost turns we had in the early rounds, but I know he had the 1 up here, and with only 3 scrolls left, it's probably pretty unlikely that that 3rd one's still in there. There's Loyal Darkling to bring this down to 1 when it finally dies. Blightbearer comes down to defend his lowest idol. And a Watcher played in the middle. Okay, and then he does move the Blightbearer down next to the Watcher. Nickdean has a Necrogeddon, so with 5 units out, if these weren't spread out quite so nicely, he could get a lucky win with the Watcher Necro. He's moving his units before making a sacrifice decision. Moves to surround the Watcher. Is he going to make a play for it? Sacrifices for scrolls. With the Necrogeddon, he can kill pretty much everything Flayer has and deal a ton of damage. Goes for it. Didn't knock out an idol, but they're all pretty darn low health right now. Let's see, so he can bring this. Has to think about his Husk movement. Obviously, the Harvester will be killed. He needs to defend this idol if he can, so maybe he'll move these 2 down to prevent any shenanigans that Flayer might have. Though I can't think other than Ripper Necro what could cause instant 3 damage. Does move down to defend just in case. With these units, he can kill this Blightbearer, but it would poison his units. Instead, chooses to kill the Watcher, and then deal probably damage to the idol. No, he does deal 3 damage to the Blightbearer, which is fine. I think that's a good play. Husks come crashing in, almost wipe Flayer's board, just 1 unit with 1 health, but Nickdean has his 5th idol on just 1 health as well. Both players on the ropes with idols, but Nickdean way down. No direct damage in Flayer's hand, and he's gone through his deck, so he is now able to cycle and try to draw those Darklings again to win it. Tribesman, he's just playing units now to try to prevent a second Necrogeddon from ending the game. Can Nickdean pull it? No, he just had 3, but he sacrificed all but 1 of them, which he did cast, and he will start going through his deck again, but they could be anywhere in that 45. Anywhere in that 45. Oh, but there it is, right off the top. It could have been anywhere, and he pulled 4 Necrogeddons and 10 cards. Okay, can he win the game this turn? These 2 units crash in, these 2 crash in. I think he can win it with a lucky Watcher damage. I think, I don't even know if I'd call it lucky, because there's so many permutations of what would win the game right here. Is that one of them? Takes out the center idol. He can get 2. Yep. He can move this husk down and win the game right there, and he'll see it. I'm certain he'll see it. There it is. Good game. Nickdean wins by pulling the Necrogeddon right off the top of the deck just after the deck cycle, winning the direct damage battle with Flayer. Wow, that was fun. That was fun. Thank you all for tuning in. We have more of these will be up on the Badger Guild YouTube channel. Check them out. They'll have a title related to Scrollscast. And that's all from me. Thank you for tuning in.